Doc is going to talk about some important factor. Well, last time we talked about insulin and the problems what the insulin can create, right? And now today we're going to want to make sure we're going to address the problems of fat intake, dietary fats particularly, because there are so many different type of fats what your body can consume, and some of them are better than others. Right, Doc?
Yep. So we have all different types of fats out there. When we think about things that can affect how you feel, multiple different ways we look at it. When we think of fat in diet, often people think about fried foods and foods that are, full of butter and things like that. But there's not so much literature out there that supports, going into having a super high saturated fat diet, which is kind of what those types of fats are. When we look at fats that are necessary as building blocks for the body, we're looking at fats that medium chain fatty acids or unsaturated fats, which help to build up your vessels and build up the structurally things in the body.
Right.
So oftentimes people will ask me, well, Doc, my cholesterol is really high. Does an avocados have a lot of fat in them? Why can I eat avocados? Well, because there's different types of fats, And
so why don't we go back? Let's rewind a little bit.
Sure.
What type of fats do we know, Doc? Saturated fat, unsaturated fat, which is unsaturated has polyunsaturated,
and monounsaturated.
And there's also trans fats, right?
Correct, trans fats, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, looking at saturated fats, those are the ones that already have been, as far as the molecular wise, they've already kind of had their maximum potential. So whenever they go into, and that's the best way I think of it. And so when they get consumed into the body, the breakdown process is a little bit more difficult, and they ended up adding to what we call our very low density lipoproteins, or your low density lipoproteins, which are your bad cholesterol, and it kind of converts into not being able to be utilized and sitting and causing up plaque and clogged arteries and so forth. So when you look at saturated fats, they do contribute to the body, but more negatively than positively. And saturated fats can be found in all different types of things, not just fried foods, but animal fats sometimes have saturated fats in them.
But they're small amounts.
Smaller amounts, and then you have to look at your products and see what the difference is. You have to really kind of be able to read the labels to see what things are. We're always surprised when we look at labels because there's different things than you think that
It's
are
crazy.
in there. On the flip side, unsaturated fats have the ability to break down. And therefore, when you are looking at fats that have that ability, you will see that you can build blocks with them. You can break them some into the good and some into the bad, but you can break them down to be utilized a little bit better in the body. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's interesting because when it comes to digestibility, absorbability, it's actually 97% of the fat can be absorbed. Actually, compared to protein, and everybody's trying to focus on protein, only 80% of the protein can be digested and absorbed properly in the body. 90% of the carbohydrates and 97% of the fats can be totally digested in the body. Very interesting.
So when you look at unsaturated fats in itself, you have that polyunsaturated. We have multiple bonds that are opened up, and monounsaturated, one bond. So you have the differences and those types of fats that lead to it in order to have that absorbability in your body. So that's kind of the basis of what we see and how we try to educate our patients. Yes, the fat is necessary and it's good for your body, because if you don't have it, you don't have enough structure. But you need to be careful to eat the proper types of fats so that you're not building in the wrong direction.
It's very interesting because, believe it or not, saturated fat and higher amount of dietary fat can actually can cause insulin resistance.
Yes.
Very interesting. You would never think that, you would think that insulin resistance comes from low fiber intake as well as it comes from higher sugar intake, definitely not adequate amount of protein intake, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, when the receptors are blocked due to the higher fat intake, unfortunately, the pancreas has to create and produce more of the insulin to be able to shove the glucose into the muscle tissues.
Correct. Correct.
So it's a crazy thing. So don't just think that if you eat high sugar content food or higher carbohydrate intake, what you do, which is going to cause you the problems. Unfortunately, higher fat dietary intake can cause the same exact insulin resistance. So you might want to pay attention, not just increasing your protein intake, increasing your fibers, but pay attention what type of, just Doc mentioned to you, what type of fats you're taking in as well. Because some of them can be absorbed and it could be beneficial for the body, not plugging the arteries, but some of them can be actually quite bad for the body.
Correct. So when you're looking, again, that question, okay, now I have a bad cholesterol, you gave me a bad bill of health. No, just joking. What do I eat, Doc? What am I going to supply myself with? So I start by kind of breaking down, what do you eat? How can we change it? Make sure that it's what we call a therapeutic lifestyle change, so you can go along and make sure that you build on what you already can do and incorporate things that are unsaturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated into those parts of your dietary regimen to be able to help building blocks. So you continue to burn, you continue to build, and you decrease the other unproductive type of fat.
Absolutely, and your body's going to be able to utilize it and not store it as fat. That's
Correct.
the key. Obviously, amount of those as well still count, because each grams of fat comes with 9 calories. Compared to protein and carbohydrates, it's only 4 and 4. So each grams of protein, each grams of carbs is going to give you 4 calories compared to 9. And I'm not even talking about what sometimes I mention to my clients who's worrying about drinking alcohol and they are thinking about, why am I gaining weight? Well, because 7 calories per gram per ounce is actually basically comes from alcohol as well. So it's very interesting. It's almost, you're getting as much calories as much as you're getting from fat. So you need to know that. And obviously, when you drink a little bit more, you're going to start to eat a little bit more. So definitely, you're creating a surplus because of that. But what kind of fats are these? What we recommend to eat, Doc?
So we try to focus on the monounsaturated fatty acids because those do help in general as building blocks in the body. We know that in general, the biggest one that people lack in that we find are the most helpful are certain types of nuts. We know that nuts have great qualities as far as amino acids and zinc and trace minerals, but they do supply a great energy source because of the amount of monounsaturated fats. And there are variants. Macadamia nuts have a really high amount of monounsaturated fats, so they're really highly suggested. And they change all the way down to peanuts, which are really not nuts, they're legumes, and they don't really contain as much fat at all. They have some, but we know even peanut oil is not as healthy as we would say macadamia nut oil or as we would think of as a nut, avocado. So avocado, technically, as a fruit, is probably one of the highest that we see in fats that's utilized appropriately in the body. I know a lot of people who can't really stand the taste of it or don't really know how to utilize it, and that's where I say we'll try to incorporate other nuts into the body as well.
It's interesting because, and also it's for me, it's not necessarily the almonds what everybody is eating is my favorite nut compared to other ones as well, because walnuts is actually so much more beneficial for me. It's the highest in omega-3 fatty acids as well. It's so much better for your heart because of that as well. So I prefer to eat walnuts compared to almonds, even though almonds are higher in protein.
So there's different things that you can do for that. So I always say it's nuts, avocados, nut butters, like we just talked about. If you can't stand the nuts, actually just blend them up. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. Some people add a teaspoon of, salt to it just to give it a little bit of, purpose in that way. If you're going to add a sugar to it because you need that taste, don't buy it over the counter. Make it yourself, add a little honey to it, and that would be better than anything else.
There you go.
Something like that. So we talk about that. If you do eat meat or if you do eat fish, that's probably the best as far as fish, not necessarily shellfish. Let's get away from that because shellfish do have higher saturated fats in general. But fish in general tend to be better off in fatty acids, monounsaturated fats.
And American Heart Association recommends at least twice a week to eat some kind of fatty acids regarding fatty fish, because it's going to provide you the right amount of omega-3 fatty acids. So it's terrific for you no matter what. It's very interesting that regarding very simply just mentioning that simple fact that trans fats, which can be found in usually hydrogenated fat, unfortunately, and you guys need to go ahead and look at the labels, because you can find all sorts of hydrogenated fat, hydrogenated oils in so many things, especially, but everybody loves the peanut butter, okay?
Yeah.
You need to look at it. We all love it, but if it has hydrogenated fat for oil, you want to make sure you're going to avoid it, because that's a trans fat, and unfortunately it's really unhealthy for you.
It's not going to break down.
Exactly, not going to break down. It's going to clog your arteries. It's going to cause heart problems. It can cause stroke as well, very interestingly, and diabetes and all sorts of other things. So make sure that you're going to avoid that on every single way. And one of my favorite oil, talking about the good ones as well, MCT, multi-triglycerides. It's definitely the coconut oil. You know, many people are, some people are saying that don't eat it. Some people are saying that eat it. I'm totally fine with that, and I love it. You know, back in the day when bodybuilding was a lifestyle for me, we increased our calorie intake by increasing our MCT oil intake. Particularly, we didn't know anything about coconut oils, but we were taking MCTs because this was increasing our calorie intake. We were able to increase our size accordingly, and we were getting the healthy fatty acids. So it's important. So you need to know that.
Yeah, so medium chain fatty acids are another way, obviously, to build. They have a much longer half-life per se in the body, and coconut's one of the major sources for that. The nice thing about coconut, it has multiple uses, from the shell all the way into the inside. And so the only thing is, if you have a high amount of triglycerides or LDL, definitely talk to your doctor about that, because you don't want to add fuel to the fire by adding a little bit more of the medium chain fatty acids. So
you guys, so you heard it. This is what you need to pay attention for. You know what to eat. What's the proper fat? What's the not so proper fat for your body? What your body can digest? What cannot digest? So pay attention for that, guys. Exercise medicine.